Sarah leans against a weathered doorframe in Seabrook, the camera capturing the soft glow of a porch lantern against the twilight, the distant crash of waves filling the air. She's in a light sweater, her hazel eyes alight with mischief and vulnerability, a half smile playing on her lips. You guys will never believe what happened. I'm Sarah, living in the coastal town of Seabrook, weaving stories from the sea's whispers in my attic room, dreaming of novels that capture the heart's quiet tides. Today's my 18th birthday, and after weeks of silence, I showed up at Daniel's door. Yep, my neighbor, a retired lighthouse keeper with salt and pepper hair, warm brown eyes, and a voice that could guide a ship through a storm. I leaned against his doorframe, and what I asked next changed everything. Want to know how it unfolded? Keep watching, because this story's all about an evening that hums louder than the ocean. Like and subscribe for more. The twilight in Seabrook was cool and restless, the air alive with the rhythmic crash of waves and the faint scent of salt and kelp drifting through the quiet streets. Sarah's 18th birthday had been a whirlwind coffee with friends, a solitary walk along the beach where she scribbled fragments of a story in her notebook, and hours in her attic, her latest draft about a storm-tossed sailor pulsing with her restless energy. Her rented attic, a cozy haven of scattered notebooks, ink pens, and sea-worn shells, was usually her refuge. But tonight, turning 18, had ignited a bold curiosity, her story's vivid prose mirroring the daring in her heart. Weeks had passed since she'd last spoken to Daniel, her neighbor, their usual exchanges silenced by a misunderstanding, a missed coffee date, a clipped conversation at the fence that left her wondering if she'd misread the warmth in his eyes. Tonight, her just-turned-18 boldness, amplified by her birthday, propelled her to his door, her heart whispering poetic fragments. A girl, 18, stands at a threshold, chasing a truth that lingers in the quiet. At 62, Daniel was a retired lighthouse keeper whose quiet strength had intrigued Sarah since she moved to Seabrook a year ago. His salt and pepper hair was tousled by the sea breeze, his warm brown eyes carried the depth of decades guiding ships through fog, and his hands calloused from years of tending the lighthouse moved with a steady grace that felt like a beacon's steady pulse. His evening, Sarah, in passing, paired with a reserved smile, had always felt kind but guarded, like a light sweeping across the horizon. She'd told herself it was just gratitude for a neighbor who'd shared stories of stormy nights at the lighthouse, who'd once fixed her attic window during a gale. But her dangerous desires, stirred by the weeks of silence, urged her to find out if the spark she'd felt was real, as resonant as the nurse Sarah's song that once wove a community together. Doorstep, 7:30 p.m. The porch lantern cast a golden glow over Daniel's doorstep, the twilight deepening, the sea's crash a steady rhythm in the distance. Sarah stood there, her light sweater catching the evening chill, her hair loose and slightly tousled from the breeze. She knocked, her heart pounding, her half smile, a mix of nerves and defiance. Daniel opened the door, his flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves, his brown eyes widening in surprise, a faint crease of worry crossing his weathered face. "Sarah," he said, his voice a low hum, like a lighthouse keeper calming a stormy night. "It's been a while. Everything all right?" She leaned against the doorframe, her hazel eyes glinting with mischief, her voice soft but charged. "Be honest," she said, her half smile growing, her words cutting through the weeks of silence. "Did you miss me?" Her dangerous desires sparked, the question a bold stroke in the quiet dusk. Here's where the story begins, she thought, her inner monologue weaving poetic lines, a girl at a door, a question like a wave, crashing into the silence. Daniel's breath caught, his eyes flickering over her face, then down to her hands clutching the doorframe, his silence heavy with unspoken truth. "Sarah," he said finally, his voice low, strained but warm, like a beacon cutting through fog. "You show up out of nowhere on my doorstep, asking that? You're trouble." His smile was hesitant but warm, and he stepped aside, gesturing her in. The air was thick with the scent of sea salt and his cologne bergamot, sharp and grounding, like a lighthouse's beam mixing with the evening's cool tang. Living room, 7:45 inside. Daniel's living room was a warm sanctuary, its walls lined with nautical charts, faded photographs of the Seabrook lighthouse, and shelves of old maritime books. A stone fireplace crackled, casting amber shadows across a worn leather couch by a window overlooking the sea. A record player spun a soft folk tune, Bob Dylan, raw and soulful, its notes curling through the air, mingling with the scents of cedar, burning logs, and Daniel's cologne. They settled on the couch, Sarah tucking her legs beneath her, the silence between them thick with the weight of her question. The pages blank, audience, she thought, addressing her imaginary readers, but the ink's ready, waiting for the words we haven't said. Their conversation started tentatively, her birthday, the weeks apart, the misunderstanding that had kept them distant. But the firelight's glow, the folk music's gentle rhythm, loosened their guards, and the air grew charged, like a story finding its rhythm. Sarah's mind flickered to memories, vivid and fluid, like lines of a draft. Daniel on her first week in Seabrook, sharing a story of a ship he'd guided to safety, his eyes lingering as he said, "You write this town's tale, Sarah." Another fragment, a summer evening, him fixing her window during a storm, his laugh warm as she teased him about his light housekeeper's instincts. Then, a quieter hue, last month, him reading her sailor story draft, his hand brushing hers, his voice soft, "You've got a novelist's soul, Sarah." A more recent note before their silence, him pausing at her gate, his eyes catching hers as he said, "You make Seabrook feel like a story." Each memory was a wave, layering their connection, pulling her toward a truth she'd been avoiding. "You didn't answer my question," she said, her voice playful but pointed, her hazel eyes searching his, the firelight catching their brown depths. "Did you miss me, Daniel? Or was it easier without me stirring things up?" The story needs a spark, she thought, her inner monologue poetic, a wave that breaks, a truth that surfaces. Daniel leaned back, his hand resting on the couch, close enough to feel its warmth, his voice low, like a keeper scanning the horizon. "Easier?" he said, his smile wry but warm. "Nothing's easy with you, Sarah. You've got this, light, in your stories, in the way you show up." "Yeah, I missed you." His words were measured, but a new weight lingered, a crack in his guarded facade, making her pulse quicken. Porch, 8:30 p.m. They stepped onto the porch to clear their heads. The seas crash louder now, the lantern's glow casting soft shadows across the weathered boards. The air was cool, tinged with salt and the faint promise of rain, the stars just beginning to pierce the twilight. Sarah leaned against the railing, Daniel beside her, their shoulders close, the silence heavy with possibility. Here's where the tide turns, she thought, addressing her audience, where the story pauses and the heart decides its course. Their conversation deepened, the weeks of silence unraveling as they spoke of what had kept them apart, a misunderstanding over a missed coffee date, a moment of doubt that had grown to large. Sarah opened up about her writing, her voice fervent as she described chasing stories that felt alive. "It's like I'm trying to capture something before it slips away," she said, her fingers brushing the railing, its texture grounding her. "I want my words to make people feel something, like the sea at night." Does that sound too much? Her hazel eyes searched his, her dangerous desires urging her to push past the quiet, like a wave seeking the shore. Daniel nodded, his hand close on the railing, his voice low, resonant, like a beacon's steady pulse. "Not too much," he said, his eyes holding hers, a flicker of something unguarded breaking through. "Your stories have that spark, Sarah. I read that sailor draft you shared, it's like you caught the sea itself. It's magnetic." His words carried a new intensity, and the air shifted, the lantern's light amplifying the moment, her plan gaining momentum like a story finding its climax. Another memory surfaced, fluid and vivid. Daniel last spring, sharing a tale of a stormy night at the lighthouse, his voice warm as she scribbled notes, his eyes bright as he said, "You see the world like a poet." Then, a recent wave, him helping her carry a stack of notebooks to her porch, his hand brushing hers, his smile brief but lingering in her chest. The memories layered like tides, tightening the connection between them, her heart pounding with the possibility of a deeper story. Living room, 9:15 p.m. Back in the living room, the folk record shifted to Joan Baez, her voice a haunting hum as the firelight danced across the shelves, the seas crash a faint rhythm through the window. They sat closer on the couch, Sarah's hands fidgeting with the hem of her sweater, the air thick with unspoken truth. Here's where the story breathes, audience, she thought, her inner monologue sharp. "Hey guys," she said aloud, her voice bright but laced with mischief, breaking the moment as if speaking to her readers, her eyes glinting as she leaned back. "We're about to get into the spicy portion of the story, so please don't forget to like and subscribe." She grinned, the words a playful shield, but her heart pounded as she turned to Daniel, her shoulder brushing his, the contact electric. "Be honest," she said softly, her voice charged with truth, her hazel eyes unwavering. Did you miss me, Daniel? Because I missed you, and I'm 18 today, and I'm done pretending I didn't. The silence was electric. Joan Baez's notes a soft pulse, the living room shrinking to just them, the couch, the firelight, the sea's distant hum. Her heartbeat quickened, her dangerous desires urging her to chase the truth in his silence, like a story finding its heart. Daniel's gaze softened, his voice low, strained but warm, like a beacon piercing the fog. I missed you, Sarah, he said, his eyes flickering to their close hands, then back to hers, a spark of something raw breaking through. You're 18 now, showing up here, asking that, and I'm trying to keep this safe. But you're making that impossible. His words echoed the quiet power of a song binding a community, resonating with her heart. Her smile widened, her heart soaring, the tension pulsing like the firelight's glow. Maybe I like impossible, she said, her voice teasing but honest, leaning closer, her hand brushing his, the contact electric, like ink spilling across a page. The story writes itself now, she thought, her inner monologue poetic, a wave that crashes, a truth that sings. I'm 18, Daniel. I get to choose what feels right. And this feels right. Her eyes locked on his, the folk music swelling like a cue, her plan unfolding in the charged silence. He laughed, a low, warm sound, his hand lingering near hers, the touch sparking a fire in her chest that felt like a story coming to life. Your trouble, Sarah, he said, his voice rich with amusement and intensity, his brown eyes twinkling with a warmth she hadn't seen before, like a keeper spotting a ship through the storm. I've been trying to keep my distance, to keep things simple. But you show up on your 18th birthday, leaning on my doorframe, and I'm supposed to stay calm? You're rewriting every line I've got. Porch, 10:30. Pumpy stepped back onto the porch, the night now clear, the seas hum a steady rhythm under a sky scattered with stars. The lantern's glow cast soft shadows across their faces, Sarah leaning against the railing, Daniel beside her, their shoulders close, the air alive with possibility. Here's the final line, audience, she thought, her inner monologue weaving, where the tide pauses, and the heart charts its course. Another memory flickered, Daniel, last month, pausing at her gate, his eyes catching hers as he said, you make Seabrook feel like a lighthouse. The memory merged with the present, her heart alive with the spark of what could be. I don't want to just be the neighbor, she said, her voice steady, her eyes locked on his, her hand grazing his arm, the contact grounding her like a finished page. What do you want, Daniel? Now that I'm here, on my 18th birthday, after weeks apart. He leaned closer, his smile slow, deliberate, his eyes tracing her face like a keeper scanning the horizon. I want to see where this story goes, he said, his voice soft but weighted, like a beacon's steady pulse. You're bold, Sarah, bolder than I was ready for. You're turning my world upside down, and I don't think I want to stop you. The lantern flickered, the seas hum a quiet witness, as resonant as a song spreading through a community. The air was thick with possibility, Sarah's dangerous desires burning brighter than the stars. You're making it hard to keep this safe, she teased, her voice a mix of playfulness and truth, her courage steady like a pen in her hand. He chuckled, his fingers brushing hers on the railing, the touch warm and electric, like a spark in a quiet lighthouse. Safe's overrated, he said, his voice low, rich, carrying the weight of their moment. What do you want, Sarah? Now that we're here, at midnight. Her heart pounded, the spark of his touch as vivid as her stories, as enduring as a song's legacy. I want this, she said, her eyes locked on his, her hand pressing against his, the contact grounding her like a finished story ready to be read. This moment, you. The sea hummed, its rhythm a soft applause, as her dangerous desires rewrote the night, leaving a daring new chapter, one fearless word at a time. Sarah leans against the porch railing, the camera capturing the lantern's glow and the sea's distant shimmer under the stars. She smiles, her eyes bright with mischief and warmth. And that's how a question turned a quiet night into something we couldn't ignore. Seabrook's got a way of making moments like this feel like a story, doesn't it? If you love this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Just turned 18. What's next for me and Daniel? Stick around to find out. See you in the next one.